Thank you all for being here. I am Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, and I'm joined today by Drew Evans, the Superintendent of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. On Thursday, August 13th, Hennepin County prosecutors filed charges under seal against 4 individuals for operating a sprawling sex trafficking scheme in Hennepin County. All 4 individuals were taken into custody without incident on Friday. I want to thank the BCA for their excellent work, their persistence, and consistent collaboration in developing these investigations alongside our prosecutors. Tara Ferguson Lopez has been the lead prosecutor on this case. The 4 individuals who've been charged are Frank Reeves, Victoria Komanash, Catherine Tomes, and Andrea Sampson. Mr. Reeves, Ms. Komanash, Ms. Tomes, and Ms. Sampson each face 13 counts of promoting prostitution of an individual and 13 counts of receiving profits from prostitution. 26 counts each, 104 counts total. Each of these 4 individuals played a significant role in the operation of this sex trafficking scheme and caused significant harm to the 13 victims identified in this complaint, as well as others who were not named. Both Mr. Reeves and Ms. Komanash were actively involved in recruiting and posting commercial sex advertisements for numerous victims, setting the rates for commercial sex transactions, collecting required payments from the victims, and more. Ms. Tomes both owned and operated an online commercial sex website where various victims were advertised for transactions, and she collected money from the victims who were posted on this website. Ms. Sampson, who was at the time working as an attorney in the Anoka County Attorney's Office, secured and provided locations for commercial sex transactions and also assisted in maintaining shell companies to hide and funnel profits from the sex trafficking ring. The level of sophistication and victimization for profit is disturbing. And these charges represent the beginning of a process to hold these 4 individuals accountable. I want to say when we're talking about commercial sex trafficking, that kind of thing, it really kind of, I think, minimizes what happened and the harm that was done here. No one wants to be involved in a sex trafficking ring. It is something that happens to you. The 13 victims and others are victims and suffered great harm from being forced to be in the sex trafficking ring. And so I want to recognize the courage of the victims to work with the BCA and our office to help prosecute these cases. We recognize the trust you have placed in us to hold these defendants accountable. Our victim services staff is working with the victims in these cases to provide support and resources. If you or someone you know is a victim of sex trafficking, resources are available at sexualviolencecenter.org. I want to again express my gratitude to the BCA for their work and collaboration with us in getting to this point. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Drew Evans, and then we'll be available for questions. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. As County Attorney Moriarty said, my name is Drew Evans. I'm the Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. I want to thank the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for their work in bringing these charges at this time. And as I won't go through the details, as she covered them fairly extensively, and you've seen copies of some of the complaints, and you'll be able to see exactly what happened. But this represents a culmination of a multi-year investigation into these defendants that is continuing to be active and ongoing to continue to uncover additional criminal activity potentially of the work that they've done. I want to thank the victims in this case for their courage and bravery in the case coming forward on this with individuals that exploited them on an ongoing basis, threatened them at different times, takes true bravery and courage, and we're thankful that you came forward so we can hold these individuals accountable so that they cannot continue to cause this harm in our communities each and every day. As you've seen here, this was a complicated scheme. This was a scheme that was designed not only to exploit the victims in these cases, take advantage of them, but also structured to hide the money and the proceeds that was done with multiple individuals, including building out shell companies, as is alleged in the complaint. And so we will continue investigating this case and working together with the county attorney's office to ensure that justice is done. And we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
Lou?
At least one of the locations, turns out to be like a group home or a place that received Medicaid money through the state. Is that wrapped into this investigation as well? Is there any wrongdoing related to that?
As Superintendent Evans said, this is an ongoing investigation. This will not be the end of it. Today, we're talking about the sex trafficking charges that have been filed.
Forgive me if I missed this in the facts of the case, but the years that Ms. Sampson was working for Anoka County, what were the years, I apologize, that she was working for the county?
I don't know that off the top of my head, Tara.
I think through almost the entirety of. I believe that Ms. Sampson was working with the Anoka County Attorney's Office in various forms throughout the timeframes that are alleged in the complaint.
And I can maybe speak just a little bit. This was a case, and as you can see, maybe to your question a little bit on the time frame of our work. This was a case that obviously our investigators believe criminal activity was and was occurring. It was a challenging case in terms of gathering evidence. We were ongoing in that process. And so we spoke with the county attorney's office as soon as we were at a place where we knew that there was enough forward momentum that we likely would be examining criminal charges. We worked with the county attorney at that time, and they took immediate action and been cooperative with us throughout since the time period that we let that office know.
What were the shell companies that you guys alleged that were operating these undercover rings, and then how were they able to hide these transactions and evade law enforcement?
I think at this point, I mean, this case obviously is extremely complex. We are at the point in this case where I believe 3 of the co-defendants will make a first appearance this afternoon. The other will make a first appearance tomorrow, as I understand it. And so because we are now beginning the prosecution phase of it, we're not going to talk about specific facts, so we can ensure that they will get a fair trial.
Does the nature
Yes.
of this case mean that any of the cases that Ms. Sampson prosecuted would be reopened? Is that under consideration at this point?
For that, you would have to ask County Attorney Brad Johnson.
These 4 people had very distinct roles in this sex trafficking as spelled out. Could you tell us in sex trafficking in 2026, is this common? Like, you know, I know sex trafficking itself, you know, there's different ways that it takes place, but to have 4 distinct people like this playing a separate role in this scheme, is that how it works now?
I'd be happy to answer a little bit. I mean, you know, obviously they had distinct roles here, and I think you saw the extent to which they went, as alleged in the complaint, to hide their activities. There's certainly in sex trafficking organizations hierarchy and individual roles. They may not always follow this exact framework that you're looking at, but they certainly were working together in this and did that. The leader and the main, as alleged in the complaint, you know, with Frank Reeves, I think that's fairly typical how he operated throughout this and other sex trafficking organizations.
Have any charges ever been brought against the men who were seemingly using these services?
The question was, have any charges been brought against the buyers of sex? The answer is no. Those would likely be gross misdemeanors. These are felony charges, and so we are focusing on these felony charges.
Just the position that this woman had, Mary, I'm curious, you know, being the head of the same office that she worked under in Anoka County. Can you just comment to the fact that she had this position and then was kind of having this double life? And, you know, I mean, how appalling is it to you as the leader of the Hennepin County Attorney's Office?
Well, of course, it's disappointing, and all kinds of things I could comment on. I think at this point, because we are in the prosecution stage of this, it's not appropriate for me to comment on that. And I know that she's no longer working there as well. I know you're.
You mentioned that there were 13 victims who were in this particular case. Do you believe there were more who were out there? Do you have an estimate of how many?
The question was about the 13 victims in this case. And I want to note that one of them is deceased. But yes, there are many more. that we believe are out there.
Do you have an idea of how many?
I don't. And as I said, this is an ongoing investigation as well. So the BCA and our office will continue to be looking to interview any victims. And if any victims of this see this information, please come forward. We would be happy. We would love to talk to you.
Can you speak at all to the monitoring or background checks done when prosecutors are brought in, even in your office, and if anything would have been visible before that hire?
Well, I could speak to our office about background checks. There are background checks, and we know if somebody has a previous conviction, that sort of thing. I can't speak to what they were doing at the Anoka County Attorney's Office. I do know that we have access to very private information, criminal justice information, and you have to, the background check has to, I mean, we have to check to make sure that prosecutors should have access to that information. Whether, you know, what happened with her is something that you'd have to ask the Anoka County Attorney's Office.
Hey, Drew, one last thing about the nature of prostitution these days. What are the methods that you're seeing that people are promoting it, getting attention towards it? I know obviously we hear a lot about undercover sting operations in prostitution, but what does your office see when it comes to how people are carrying this out?
Yeah, the question is, how is this being carried out in 2026? And you're seeing, and I think as noted, some of the undercover stings that we engage in where we are targeting buyers in those situations, almost exclusively online. So almost exclusively online, it's arranged on that. The traffickers arrange that. It's designed to hide their identity in that process, take advantage of the victims through exploitation that they're working on. I think it outlines in the complaint how some of that exploitation was occurring, but I think the way that this is advertised and carried out and with these location is a fairly typical way that is alleged in the complaints here today.
Is that difficult to invest? I mean, the free range nature of the internet, I guess, is what I'm worried about. Does that become difficult to investigate?
Well, as you can see here, it's difficult to investigate. It certainly can be, and I think that's what you're seeing for a long-term investigation here in that process, because it's designed to obfuscate the people that are actually running this operation, and then you're putting the people that are in the harm's way in a difficult position. And, you know, as even alleged in the complaints, there's situations where somebody would appear with a firearm to keep people from cooperating. That's a real fear that these trafficking victims would face each and every day. And so to be able to build that relationship and trust with prosecutors and investigators can be challenging for obvious reasons because of what they're facing and the intimidation that they face each and every day.
I did want to say one last thing. Language matters, as you all know, as journalists. While our charges in the statute specifically talk about prostitution, we typically don't talk about it that way. It's sex work. But I also want to say that the women that were involved here, there was nothing about this that was voluntary. But we try to avoid labels like prostitution. So I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.